The drone hit the slope at 0340 and I felt it through the floor before I heard it, a low percussion through the station's anchor bolts, the kind the rock makes when something heavy lands wrong. I pulled my coat on and went out into the storm anyway, because a survey drone going down in Kala's third moon weather means a distress flag, and a distress flag means paperwork, and I have always found it easier to deal with the source of a thing than with its aftermath. I found the wreck 40 meters upslope, half buried in the scree where the storm had pushed it. The hull was breached. I was already writing the incident report in my head, no pilot, automated survey class, total loss, when I heard something inside the cargo compartment that was not the wind. She was tucked into the equipment bay behind the drone's battery stack, knees drawn to her chest, not crying, not screaming. Watching me. Her skin was the color of old bone in lamplight, pale gold, and her eyes caught what little illumination I had and gave it back twice over. Pointed ears, small frame, a torn cloth wrap she'd pulled around herself from somewhere in the bay. She looked at my hands first, the way a child does when they are deciding whether the person in front of them is going to be trouble. I held them open. Low and still. She didn't move for a long moment. Then she reached out and put 2 fingers on my wrist, not gripping, just resting. That was all. I carried her back to the station inside my coat. I got her warm. I found a protein bar and broke it into pieces and set them on the table in front of her, and she ate them with 2 fingers, methodically, watching me the whole time. I was logging the retrieval when she made a sound, not a word, not a cry. A pulse of something below my hearing that I felt in my back teeth and behind my sternum. A low, cycling hum that rose and fell like breathing. I didn't know what it was. The rock did. At 0510, the station's seismic array tripped an alert. Not a tremor, something moving through the subsurface, regular, purposeful. Deep. I checked the readout and then checked it again because the mass estimate seemed wrong by 2 orders of magnitude, and I was still looking at it when the station wall groaned. Not a structural groan. A pressure groan, like something very large had come to rest against the exterior. I killed the lights, old habit, and went to the perimeter sensor panel in the dark. The thermal return on the east side of the station was enormous. It wrapped the building on 3 sides, patient and still, and it was warm, warmer than the moon's surface had any business being. Something alive. Something that had come up from the deep rock and pressed itself against my walls and stopped there. Not battering. Not probing. Stopped. The child made the sound again. Longer this time, with a shape to it I almost recognized. I stood in the dark for a long time thinking about what I knew and what I didn't. I knew the deep crawlers were territorial, every survey report on this moon said the same thing. I knew they were large enough that the station's walls wouldn't slow one down if it chose to come through. I knew that in 11 months on this post I had never seen a surface reading on one, because they don't surface. What I didn't know was why this one had stopped. I watched the thermal return for 40 minutes. It did not move. The child sat on the floor of the station with her back against the heating element and made her low cycling sound, and the thing outside answered it, not with a sound I could hear but with a change in the seismic feed, a deep harmonic that registered on the array as a sustained frequency just below the equipment's lower threshold. The sensors clipped it. I felt it in the floor. They were talking. Or something older than talking. Something that had been happening between Solvith children and deeps crawlers for longer than my species had been on this moon, or any moon. I didn't know the word for it. I didn't need to. I knew what it looked like when something wasn't trying to come through a wall. I picked the child up. She looked at my face and settled against my shoulder without protest, still humming, and I thought, she is not afraid of this. She has known this her whole short life. I am the only one in this station who doesn't know what is happening. That settled it. I keyed the outer door release. The storm had dropped in the last hour. Kayla's moons do that, one system rolling through and the next not yet arrived, and you get these windows of unnatural quiet between them. I stood in the doorway with the child against my chest and looked out at what was there. The deep crawler filled the visible slope. That's the only way I can say it. It was not one shape I could name, it was a presence, a mass of slow-moving dark that absorbed the low pre-dawn light the way stone does, and it was very close, and it was very still. It had the quality of something that has been waiting a long time and does not mind waiting longer. I could feel it looking at us. Not at me. At her. The child lifted her head from my shoulder and looked back. Both hands gripped my collar, but not in fear, in the way a person holds on when they want to be held, not when they need to be steadied. She made the sound again, 3 pulses with a fall at the end, and from somewhere in the mass of the creature below us came the harmonic answer, felt more than heard, and the child's grip on my collar loosened 1 finger at a time. We stood in the doorway for maybe 3 minutes. I don't know what passed between them. Something was completed, that's all I can say. A recognition. An accounting. Something that had been open was now closed. The creature moved. Not quickly, not suddenly. It pulled away from the station wall the way a tide pulls back, smoothly and without urgency, and the rock accepted it, and it was gone. The seismic array showed it descending for 11 minutes, and then the trace dropped below threshold and the moon was quiet. I stood there a while longer, the child solid and warm against my shoulder, the door still open, the pre-dawn light coming up gray-gold over the eastern ridge. She put her palm flat against my jaw. Not gripping. Just resting there, the way she'd put 2 fingers on my wrist in the wreck of the drone 6 hours before. I didn't know that custom. I didn't know what it meant to her people, or whether it meant anything at all, and she was just a small child touching the face of the person who had kept her warm through the night. It didn't matter. I covered her hand with mine and held it there for a moment. The extraction shuttle came in at first light, a Solvith relief craft that had been tracking the drone's distress signal, and I handed her to the woman who came down the ramp, and I watched the shuttle lift and clear the ridge and disappear into the high weather. I wrote up my incident report. Drone retrieval, total loss of vehicle, 1 juvenile survivor recovered and transferred to appropriate authorities at 0631. Anomalous seismic activity between 0510 and 0541, source unconfirmed, no structural damage. I left out the part about opening the door. Some decisions don't fit in a form. I made a call in the dark based on what I could read, and it turned out to be the right one, and the child went home. That's the whole of it. I've been on this post 2 more years since then, and I've never heard the deep crawler's surface again, not once, not even a tremor. I think about that sometimes, on the quiet nights. Whatever it came to complete, it completed it. And I was the one holding her when it did. That's enough.